We're back today with the Education Committee. I actually can't believe they held it. They haven't had one since September of last year. Don't know what they're going to talk about, but let's just get into it. Oh, by the way, Keith Grave, Keith Graves is the chair of this committee. I thought it would be Jessica McCormick. In fact, I don't even see her.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Education Committee of the City County Council February 20th, 2024. I would like to ask my fellow councilors to introduce themselves and state the district in which they serve, starting with my colleague on the lower level.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Bain, representing District 21 on the southwest side.
So this is interesting. I will tell you, there are some people missing. All right, so you got Keith Graves, you got Carlos Perkins, John Barth, Dan Boots, Josh Bain. People who are missing are Derek Cahill, Michael Paul Hart, Jessica McCormick, my counselor, and Leroy Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Boots, Counselor 3, Washington, Lawrence Townships.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Barth, representing District 7 in the Midtown area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Carlos Perkins, District 6.
Thank you,
I'm doing
councilors.
what?
My name is Keith Graves. I'm the chairman of the Education Committee.
You notice a trend? It's Republicans, then white Democrats, then black Democrats. It is weird how they do that. I noticed that in the
Committee.
Metropolitan Committee
we do
meeting.
not have any proposals on the agenda
Weird.
this evening,
Just
but we do
saying, it's
have
kind of
a
weird.
Presentation. It will be by the director of the Education and Innovation, Office of Education and Innovation, Patrick McAllister. But before Mr. McAllister starts, I do have a few words I want to just read to set the tone for what I believe will be an amazing year for education in our city. And I say that because we're not only investing in the future of our city, but we're contributing to a movement. As we saw this year already, our governor and our mayor has indicated the importance that education will play this year for them.
Don't they say that every year?
It's been said that education is not only a tool for personal advancement, but can also be a catalyst to transform society. So as we work together to improve educational opportunities for all residents of Indianapolis, let us remember that our efforts...
Who is not allowed to go to school? Anybody? Anybody out there? I know. I'm going to try and not pause it so much, but it's annoying. Everybody is allowed to go to school. Even illegals are.
have the potential to ripple far beyond our city and possibly impact our world for the better. Again, my name is Keith Graves, and I want to now ask Director McAllister to present.
Such a joke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Patrick McAllister. I'm the Director of the Office of Education and Innovation. Excited to speak with you here on the inaugural meeting of the Education Committee. Tonight, we're going to do a couple of things from our office. First, I want to do what I am calling OEI 101, which is to give everyone a general overview of how our office operates, the work that we do, answer any questions that you may have about how and what we do. And I'd also am very excited that we're going to be able to go deeper tonight on one of our programs that I'm really proud of, which is Circle City Readers. We're fortunate enough to have members of my team, the program director of Circle City Readers, and one of our tutors for that program here tonight to speak to their experience with the program, things that have gone well, things that we're working to improve on, and what we hope for the rest of the year. I'll note that Circle City Readers started at the beginning of this school year, and we're only halfway through, so the information we're sharing with you tonight is our midpoint. And we're really looking forward to finishing out the year strong and continuing to talk to you about this program. But first, I'll go through the Office of Education and Innovation briefly.
It's part of the mayor's office, by the way, part of the city government.
OEI has two main functions for the city of Indianapolis. First, we are the education policy group that supports the city on various programs, including Circle City Readers, Indy Achieves, and during the pandemic, the Indianapolis e-learning fund. So we provide that support to the city, to the mayor. Our primary role and responsibility is as a charter school authorizer. Charter schools, so that everyone knows, are public schools that are managed by nonprofit entities.
Did you just hear that? Did you just hear that? Charter schools are a public school. How many years have we heard from Democrats of how charter schools are not public schools? Well, let me tell you what, libs. The director of education for the city just debunked ya.
The charter refers to
I gotta clip that. What are we at? 420. All right. Note to self.
the contract between the authorizer, which is in this case the city of Indianapolis, and that nonprofit operating the school. The mayor's office was one of the first authorizers when the law passed in the early 2000s, and we have some schools that are about 20 years old, so we've been doing this for a while. The authorizing work has consistently happened in a bipartisan manner. We started with a Democratic mayor when the office opened. We shifted to a Republican mayor, and now have a Democratic mayor. So it's been work that our community has done in a bipartisan fashion. We're not the only school option in town. Our schools are not the only option. There
What
are
is she doing?
many options that our city has, including our 11 public school districts, many private schools, and other charter authorizers that exist in this city. I want to be clear that I cannot speak specifically to how those other authorizers operate. What I can do is provide you detail and overview of how our office works. Hopefully that can illuminate what we do.
I don't really know so much about state or city education and how the policies work and kind of like the mechanisms that they use, even for like funding or like what qualifies them for certain programs. So I'm still learning a lot about this. I don't think city government should be involved with this stuff, but here we are. And what I mean city government, I mean the mayor's office.
So let me see if I can get this to advance. So OEI has a school performance framework that's broken into 4 core questions. The first core question is about academics. So is the educational program a success? We have 8 separate indicators for that. Some are specific to elementary and middle school, and some are specific to high school. Those of you in K-12 education know that middle school, elementary school, middle school, and high school are different in a variety of ways, and so our metrics have to be different. So elementary and middle school, we rely on the I-Learn and I-Read assessments. We also look at important information like chronic absenteeism. And in high school, we look at a variety of measures: graduation rates, credit completion, and one that is actually my particular favorite, which is 9th grade on track. 9th grade on track is an evidence-based measure to see whether or not a 9th grader, after they've accumulated their credits in that year, is on track to graduate from high school. We think that's an important measure because it gives us a directional understanding of graduation rate, because that's calculated by looking at the whole cohort of students. And we think credit accumulation is one of the key markers of whether or not someone's going to be successful in high school. The second core question is the organization in sound fiscal health? Our charter schools are large, complicated nonprofit entities. They employ hundreds, sometimes, of employees. They have HR systems, vendor systems. All of those measures are important.
It's a lot of money.
In core question 2, we look at the fiscal health of the organization. How much cash on hand do they have? Do they have enough to continue to operate 45 days out from if they stop receiving state funding? We also look at long-term health, fiscal health. That includes any loans or debt service they have on facilities. And we also want to make sure that schools have adequate financial controls within the systems that they operate. Core question 3, is the organization effective and well-run? We call that our governance metric. All of our schools are governed by nonprofit boards of directors. Those are the entities that hold the charter contract with the city. We look at
Kind of like a school board.
those boards are very important. If the school leader is strong and the board is weak, we see problems that go in a certain direction. And so we need a strong board to support and ask questions of strong school leaders. So we have a governance structure, a governance framework that looks at a variety of measures. Do we have folks with a variety of business experiences on the board? Do we have lawyers? Do we have accountants? Do we have HR professionals? Do we have educators who can ask the executive director or principal education-related questions so you're not taking the data that you're presented on face value? We look at succession planning in this. Our schools, making sure that if a school leader exits, do they have a plan for that succession? We also ask schools questions about the race and ethnicity of our school boards and who is actually sitting in those seats. And we have some data that I can present to this committee on where we're at with that metric as well. And finally, core question 4. All the first 3 core questions are outcomes based. So they're things that we can see either from academic data or financial data or information we're observing in the board meetings of our schools. I should note that all of our school board meetings follow open door law. So if you want to attend or have public comment, you have the ability to do that. So we have teams that go and observe that process to make sure that the boards are reporting out information that they need and that there's nothing concerning coming up. The last section, core question 4, is a site visit, which is our schools. We build a list of professionals who have a variety of experiences that are necessary for a functioning school, and they go into the school. They observe every classroom. They sit down with parents. They sit down with students and teachers and ask them pretty blunt questions about how things are going. Included in those teams are folks who have experience with English language learners and folks who have experience with special education to make sure that schools are following not only the letter of the law, but are doing best practices for populations who might need additional support.
Which means more money is needed.
And so that's kind of how we annually observe our schools. I will say the site visit doesn't happen annually. In the first charter term, it happens 3 times. In subsequent charter terms, it happens twice. But the rest, all 3 of the other questions,
I think it should happen more.
Every year. Our charters are typically 7-year terms, where a school receives a charter from our office. They go through a rigorous pre-opening process. We make sure that they have everything they need to open, and on day 1 that they could serve students. We then have, we evaluate the school every year with this framework. We have a review process in the middle of the charter to kind of look back and see, okay, it's been 4 years. How have things gone across all these metrics? And then at the end, we make a renewal decision on whether or not the school is renewed for another term. I will note that this year, last year, the General Assembly allowed for charter schools to have up to 15-year terms as charters. They weren't specific about the criteria for that in state statute. We interpreted that as we are reserving that opportunity for schools that have met all of our standards across all of our domains on average. And we granted our first set of 15-year charters in December of this year. So we have 4 charter networks, many of them who've been with us for a long time, who received those charters. But that is something we reserve for our
the elite
schools.
Of charter schools.
The final thing that I'll note about renewal is that we have now, we're beginning to look more holistically, not at individual schools, but also at networks of schools, because many of the schools function as a network. They have the individual kind of components at every school, but they also have a staff and a culture that they've tried to develop across the network.
I don't think that's what
So
you mean by
what we've
holistically,
done,
bud.
and what we'll look at doing in the future is renewing charter networks together so that all of their evaluation moments happen at the same time. And we're not just talking about how one school's doing. We're also in addition to talking about how the whole network is doing, because many of our schools are going towards a network kind of structure. We
Like a franchise.
have approximately 50 schools in our portfolio of schools. They're probably somewhere in the mid-60s for charters in Marion County. Our schools serve about 18,000 students. I will note that about 2,500 of those students are adults, and they're part of our Excel centers, which are our adult high schools.
What? That's a real thing? So, adult high school. I like just recently learned this term. I didn't think it was real. I thought it was fake, but it's like people that need to get a GED, or you have illegals that come in and they need to have a high school education for most things, obviously, and they need schooling for it. So you got like these. I don't even know how far the age gap goes, but I imagine it's got to go like mid to or early to mid 20s.
And there are about 150,000 K-12 aged students in public schools, traditional public and public charter in Marion County. So our schools serve a decent chunk of those students. I said that was the final thing, but I want to add another piece. We have, during
Go off,
our
King.
Hawkins administration, built a deep relationship with IPS through our Innovation Network schools. About a third of our portfolio, probably trending towards a half of our portfolio, are Innovation Network schools with IPS. And that means that they're charters, they have charters with us, but they also have some level of relationship with the district. The district may provide support as it relates to special education or English language learners. They may offer those kinds of supports. It may go as deep as the charter school is operating a neighborhood school in a neighborhood school facility. They have a contract with the district.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a variety of different kinds of innovation partnerships along that network spectrum that many of our schools
They
have worked
share.
with. I meet with the team at IPS a lot. I'll note that Dr. Johnson actually interviewed me for Teach for America about 15 years ago, so we go back pretty far, and we work really closely with that district. We have, I want to also talk a little bit about our authorizer fee, because I know that's a question. We do assess a 1% fee on the tuition support amount that schools receive. State law allows us to assess up to 3%. We have a operating philosophy that we want to make sure as many dollars as possible stay in the classroom, so we only assess a fee up to what we actually need. And when we go through the budget process later on this fall, I'll walk through kind of every element of our budget. I'll say that 80% of our budget goes to salaries for my team, and we really try to stay as lean as possible. We haven't actually grown our staff.
Hold on, buddy. Hold on. And how much does old Patty McAllister make? You know, just 100 grand. I don't mean that as, oh, it's only 100 grand. It's a lot of money. So that's part of the salary.
By very many since I started at OEI. So even though we've increased our schools by about 30%, we've stayed a lean staff because we really value that money staying in the classroom as much as possible.
In case anybody
The
is actually
other
watching.
piece of this that I think is really important to note is that we do not assess a fee on a school in their first 3 years of operation. There's a concern that charter schools open schools to quickly authorizes open schools quickly to assess fees from those schools so that they can bring in more resources for themselves. We don't want that to be ever a reason that anyone thinks we authorize schools in our city. That's not why we do business here. We want to make sure that people know that our schools that we are authorizing, we're authorizing because we believe in them, not for any other reason. So in part because of that, in part because in the first several years of school operation, the finances for schools can be tight. Anyone who's worked in the charter space knows that every dollar counts, and this counts especially in your first few years.
He does not want to be here.
Only assess a 1% fee, and that's only after a school's been in operation for 3 years. The final thing I'll note that I want to share with the board, and this was something that I shared previously, is the who has power on our boards matter, because they're the ones making decisions. The boards and by extension the school leader identifies who schools hire.
Got to make sure we get those affirmative action numbers
going. What is the culture
going.
of the school? And we want to make sure that our schools, we are progressing to represent the students that they serve. We're not there yet, but we have seen a significant increase in the board member diversity on our schools. So on our boards, we have about 20 boards across 50 schools, so some networks have the same boards. And we have about 260 members. 38% are black, around 51% are white, around 5.8% are Hispanic or Latino, 3.43% are Asian, and the rest are multiracial. And that's also mirrors who our board chairs are too. So we have about 50% white board chairs, 50% board chairs of color. And that's not by accident. Our boards have done a lot of work to recruit professionals who reflect the students that they serve. They all have the same credentials. They're all lawyers and accountants and educators, but they also reflect the students that they serve. I say all that to say the mayor's office is hosting a board recruitment event on March 5th. And so if you have anyone in your communities who might want to join a charter board, it's March 6th. I'm sorry, I got to get the date wrong. March 6th. Thank you, Holly. So March 6th at the Stutz, we'll have all of our boards there. You'll be able to talk to board chairs, figure out if there's a board that aligns with your set of experiences and interests, and see if there's a match there. So it's March 6th at the Stutz. I would encourage you to encourage other professionals to come and join our boards. Before we get to Circle City readers, I want to pause and see what questions the committee members have for me, or if there's anything else I can clarify.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your presentation thus far. I'd like to give the opportunity for my colleagues to ask questions.
Hey, Michael Paul Hart showed up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you can't speak to the process that other authorizers go through, but do we have an assessment of performance by authorizer in the city? Is it fair to say that schools authorized by the mayor's office are generally performing at a certain level, and schools authorized by Shrine or Ball State or whomever it might be perform at a different level? Does that assessment exist?
So there are several research papers that have been written about this. One is the Credo study that came out of Stanford about the number of additional days of learning that students in mayor-sponsored charter schools get as compared to students in other education settings. There's also a study by some researchers out of Notre Dame that came out about how mayor-sponsored charter schools perform as well. I've not conducted any analysis or assessment comparing us to other school operators or school authorizers or traditional public schools, but there is research out there available that indicates how our schools perform as compared to some of the other charter schools out there.
Thanks.
Councilor Boots.
Thank you,
What
Mr.
is he
Chairman, and
messing around on
thanks,
his
Director.
phone?
Just following up on Councilor Barth's question, You said these studies about mayor-supported schools, is that for Marion County?
Yeah,
Or is
that's what I
that
want to know.
a general study?
So there are a couple of studies. The Credo study includes mayor-sponsored charter schools broken out in comparison to other public school entities.
In Marion County
in
or
Marion County.
nationally?
In Marion County.
That's all we want to know.
And then the
Thank you.
Notre Dame study looks at charter authorizing specifically. It's hard because we have about 50 schools, and there are only probably about 65 charter schools, mid-60s in Marion County. So the N size is not, large enough to make a comparison as much in Marion County. But we do have a long track record of performance, and I'd be happy to share those studies with the committee.
I think eventually we would like to see that. And just a quick follow-up, everything you've talked about on the performance framework, that applies only to mayor authorized charters, correct?
That's right. We only have oversight of schools that we authorize.
Right. So the others, however well-performing or poor-performing they're doing, we have no control over them in Marion County.
We're one of several authorizers in this state, yes.
And if we haven't authorized it, we have no authority over it.
That's right.
That's what he's trying to ask. Good God. Oh, my God. That's so frustrating.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, Patrick. Great talking with you. A couple of quick questions following up on my colleagues. Back to the performance framework. Under question number
Graves
3,
messing around.
how much effort is placed from your staff looking at kind of code of conduct, student handbook from these schools that we've granted charter? Do you get involved with the general operation or code of conduct for these schools?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. Got one follow-up question.
That's it's kind of their school,
In terms
right?
of measure of success, I mean, generally, most of the elementary schools use iLearn and iRead, right? Most high schools will go on track, ninth grade on track record or credit accumulation. So if we would ask for you to take a look at a comparison across the state of Indiana of schools that are charters and how students are performing, that could potentially be done because that information is all reported to the state, correct?
That information is appointed to the state, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think at some point I echo what Councilor Booth has shared, that at some point we'll want to ask for that to see how we're performing as a city.
Yeah, let's a little competition here. Hey, how we doing against your boys, huh?
Councilor Bain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Patrick, for the presentation. I know charter schools are public schools, therefore I have to assume they run off of taxpayer dollars. What's the funding mechanism for a charter school? So, for example, if we have one in Decatur Township, let's say the Excel Center, is their funding base like the same as the Decatur Metropolitan School District, or does it come from the general fund of the city as a whole? What's the tax base?
Sure. So the Excel Center is actually the one that's like very different. But the funding for all of our schools come from the state. So they're either part of the student funding formula, and again, I referenced that in the school foundation amount here, tuition support that schools receive. So schools receive a foundation amount, and then they receive additional revenue based on the student population that they have, sometimes referred to complexity. They also receive revenue for English language learners. They also receive revenue for
Boy, that
special
sounds
education.
corrupt.
So that all comes from, based on a per student basis from they also receive other federal funds, I should note, Title I and all the rest. That comes from the state directly to the schools. None of that passes through the city. It goes directly to the schools and not through us.
Okay, so charter schools do not take funding away from our local public schools?
I think take funding away is a question that I'm not really prepared to answer because charter schools receive funding based on a per student amount, just like traditional public schools do.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that
Councilor Hart?
is that Larry Vaughn that I just heard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think what he's trying to say, like everybody, it gets designated a certain amount depending on how many kids are in the school and what that school requires of like English learners and special needs and that kind of stuff. So it's not per se that they're taking funds away from there because they already designated amount of funds. Let's just go with that.
Chairman, thank you, Patrick. Good to see you again, and I appreciate the presentation. One thing came to mind, and just because I now have a student going into high school next year, and we're experiencing some new things.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I don't know. It goes really fast. And one of the things that
Yeah, we can hear an
we're going to
echo.
experience is there's a partnership between Vincennes and the school, my public school that my daughter goes to, and it's basically a full associate's degree program all the way through. Is that something that the charter schools can also benefit with, or is there a place where the city has stepped in to help broker those relationships, and do they exist, or is there any vision for them to exist if they don't?
Yeah, so dual credit and dual enrollment opportunities are available in a lot of our schools. I think a good example of that is Believe Circle City, which is a charter school that is at Fall Creek and Capitol. They are literally across the street from Ivy Tech. And so every day students go across the street to get college level courses directly from Ivy Tech. We have school students that a lot of them go to Ivy Tech, some of them go to IPUI, some of them go to Marion. So our schools have built really robust partnerships with higher ed, and they've also built up their own individual dual enrollment dual credit opportunities within the schools that they have.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation.
Any other questions from counselors? Please proceed. Thanks.
So with that, I'd like to introduce Holly Morgan and Brooke Arnett Holman,
She is so
who are going to
over it.
present on Circle City Readers. Holly is the Assistant Director for Academics at OEI, so if you have any more detailed academic questions...
Yo! Hey!
when I say that.
Larry
And
Vaughn in the
Brooke,
house.
runs the day-to-day program of Circle City Readers. And you guys can come over here and sit here.
This guy's bored. That woman's bored. Larry Vaughn is awesome. Holly's about ready to pop.
All right. Thank you so much for having us. I think we are very excited to kind of share where we are with Circle City Readers halfway through the program. So I'm going to let Brooke take it from here.
Go get him,
Please
Brooke.
introduce yourselves for us. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm Holly Morgan, Assistant Director of Academics at OEI. I've had many titles since I've been here.
Yay. Hello, I am the Program Director for Circle City Readers. My name is Brooke Arnett Holman.
Brooke Arnett.
And I'll just go ahead and get started.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So the Office of Education Innovation presented a $1.2 million budget and received ARPA funds for the 2023-2024 school year. With this, an investment was made in Amplify Tutoring. This is a new program that was created to fill a nationwide need for foundational literacy. This is also backed in the science of...
I don't know. Whenever I hear ARPA funds and they say that's what we use to fund this thing, and look how great it is. This is just a way to get funding. That's what this whole meeting is about. Oh man.
It makes it tutor-friendly and efficient for our staff to use, even if they don't have backgrounds in education. We conducted a pilot with around 40 students and 4 tutors from April to May, about 8 weeks long, at Liberty Grove and Mary Riggs. During this time, all of our students that participated in the program showed growth. We are now currently within 9 schools at Warren, Township, IPS, IPS Innovation, standalone charters, and 1 Boys and Girls Club within IPS. This is our only Boys and Girls Club, our after-school site, which we will likely pivot to exclusive school pullout, which we've been seeing is the best results for students. The data that you see here does not include Sankofa due to difficulties with tutor retention and scheduling. However, we are back in full effect with 26 additional students.
We couldn't get them to show up to tutoring.
We have 27 tutors and 1 lead tutor with 3 co-leads, as well as we are continuing to hire tutors as we continue our season. Alrighty. Our tutoring model works alongside the 30-minute to 60-minute block of differentiated small group literacy focus at our schools. This is where we support teachers with Circle City Reading tutoring. We pull students in small groups about 2 to 4 for 30-minute sessions, 3 to 4 times a week. It varies with our schools. Some of our schools have 3 days a week. Some of our schools have 4 days a week. We do this during, again, like I said, the small group literacy block so that students are not missing their core instruction. Tutors have come to us from various means. Our Indy Star features have generated a lot of interest. We work alongside family engagement coordinators within our schools, word of mouth, different networking events, and different college campuses. DIBBLES is the amplified assessment for early literacy. Many schools in the city use this, including some of our CCR schools, which make it great for the alignment of our program when working with those schools. We assess students at 3 points in our tutoring season: beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year. And the DIBBLES composite score looks at basic skills that students are learning, like letter names, sounds, phonemic awareness, decoding, word reading, reading fluency, and accuracy. We typically don't expect to see students move in levels in just one semester, especially students that begin in well below benchmark in those older grades. And so this is our target market, the well below and below average students, because they are at risk of not meeting their goals. This data shows 320 students that we received beginning of year and middle of year data for. 86% of these students were within the well below benchmark or below benchmark at the beginning of our tutoring, which again is our target market. We want our students there. That's the need. Of the 320 students with beginning of year and middle of year assessment data, we do see a 6.2 percentage point decrease in that well below benchmark. This means that 20 students moved from that well below benchmark area in just that short 6 to 13 week time, which is now representing 18% of well below benchmark students at the beginning of year. Amplified typically sees a 10 to 20% reduction in that well below benchmark from the beginning of year to middle of year. So our 18% point is on the high end of what they're typically seeing.
Huh?
And this is just a visual for what I was just explaining. The red at the beginning of year is where a lot of our well below benchmark students lived. As we see it shift down into the middle of year, it has begun to
You
shrink.
see the red?
That below benchmark.
It had a lot of it, but the middle of the year, it's less of it. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to be a dick, but look, we go better now. I'm sorry. It's just obvious. It's just so obvious that when you do tutoring, you're going to get better at something. It's like repetition. Like, I've seen this now. Now I understand the concept going forward. Like, there should have been an improvement. If there wasn't an improvement, then you were doing your job wrong.
All right, and I'm going to jump in on analyzing zones of growth. So Brooke has been kind of talking about where students were performing as far as benchmark when they started. So I'm going to focus on that growth that has been made, which is what we would expect to see the most movement in right now. So on our DIBBLES assessment, you can see the different zones of growth, ranging from well above average to well below average. Those students who are at the well above average or above average growth are closing the achievement gap faster than their peers. So we would expect them to, average growth would be a year's worth of growth. So well above or above average is faster than a year's worth of growth. When looking at those students where we have that data from beginning of year to middle of year, We can see all of the growth that we have made there. This is for the entire program. 36.1% of students made well above average or above average growth in just that 6 to 13 weeks of tutoring. So again, those are those students who are outpacing the average student and closing the achievement gap.
It's like a month and a half to 3 months.
This
over
next
3
bit of
months.
data is the part that I am most proud of and I'm like kind of nerded out about. So we have, as Brooke mentioned, several of our schools use this DIBELS assessment as a formative assessment throughout the year. So I took, just looking at the students who at the beginning of year started with well below benchmark or at the below benchmark status, I looked at the school's overall performance to see, okay, just those kiddos who are like the biggest need, how are they doing with growth at the school level? At the school level for school one, we had 17.4% of students showed that above average or well above average growth that we want to see. Of those students in that school who were receiving our tutoring services, 25% made that above or well above average growth. So you can see that with the additional intervention of CCR, they're making more growth.
Well, yeah, they get a tutor, man. What do you think is going to happen?
A couple of schools. So school two, similar findings, even better findings. We've got 21.5% of those students at the school
You
level.
better
who
have
started, again, at the well below or below benchmark. And then with our CCR tutoring, 33.4% are showing that growth that we want to see. And then this one's really exciting. School three, we had 16.3% of students versus our CCR program, which was 42.9%. And the question that has come up is why? Why are we seeing such a difference at that school? And that is one thing that we have noticed across the program is that school has, and it's similar for other schools as well, consistent tutors who are consistently attending their sessions and are there all the time, and who just really care about the program and the kids. And then also school leadership and teacher buy-in at that school. It's huge, makes a huge impact on the growth that we're seeing with our.
So what you're saying is, if you give a shit to teach the kids how to do well, you'll get better results. Oh.
I would love to invite Matt Anderson up to the podium.
Oh,
to
man.
discuss
This
his
is what our
role as a
taxpayer
lead tutor.
dollars are going to,
He's
folks.
lead tutor at Vision Academy at
This
Riverside,
kind of-
the Path School,
this kind
and
of
Jonathan
knowledge.
Jennings 109 Boys and Girls Club.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Anderson. How you doing?
Holy shit. Hey, where'd Larry Vaughn
I'm a
go?
lead tutor for Circle City Readers. I started back July-ish in that area. My history, my background is manufacturing. I was an operations manager for a steel company for 23 years. And I chose that I wanted to do something where I could give back to the community. I was also a Little League baseball coach, so I wanted to do something with the kids. I was a part of a leadership
creepy.
program and was senioring someone that happened to tell me about this literacy initiative. And I was,
Hey,
my wife
man.
works for the
Just
government.
kinda.
I'm going to take the leap of faith and I'm going to be in contribution.
Hey, man, I'm just here to help, bro.
Never teaching, never tutoring, never doing any of that stuff. And
He's going to break that podium.
the first half of this year, it's mind blowing what I've seen. The way the students greet you, the way it's just that they know that they're cared about. They're there to learn. They're empowered to make mistakes.
Jeez, that echo,
And,
whatever's going with that
growth
speaker in there.
You know, just seeing
That would be
they're
crazy.
excited about learning. So, and I'm here. I see the kids every day. So, what questions do you have
Jeez.
for me?
Thank you for sharing your testimony there. Any questions from my
Dr. P.
Counselor Perkins.
Mr. Chairman, I want to go back to the slide, the initial slide on the beginning of the year assessment. And I wanted that to reflect for us what that means.
Listen, I'm getting it on my end too.
86% of the students that you measured are performing below grade level in kindergarten, first and second grade, and third grade.
Yeah.
That is problematic.
Yeah, it is problematic.
I absolutely appreciate the tutoring that's being offered to try to close that gap. But what we do know is that
What do we know?
children learn to read all the way up to third grade,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're reading to learn after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does it say for us if 86% of our students before third grade are performing below grade level on a what one could agree is a national test? DIBELS is used across the country, right? What does that mean for us?
It means the parents need to start doing their job.
Are you asking?
Yes.
Do you want to answer that? You want me to take it? So I think, the 86% is high, right? Because that is our target group that we are focused on. When we went to schools, we said, we want to help those students with the greatest need. But I mean, that says for us that we have a lot of work to do.
So which means, we're going to need more money. Hey, listen, see the great job that we're doing right now? Don't you want to keep doing that? Just give us more money.
And I am really excited to see the results for the end of year of this program and hope that we can continue to get funding to move it forward.
There it is.
It's obviously a need. I did some analysis as well on
This is just a marketing pitch. This is just a pitch to get more funding. I thought you guys actually gave a shit.
third grade iRead from last year for 23.
You guys are the
In
worst.
Marion County, it's close to 3,500 students in third grade did not pass. So, and that's just Marion County. So that's,
Okay, so whose fault is
we
that?
see the need for sure. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Barth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So along the same lines as Councilor Perkins, with this high proportion of students struggling with reading, so in my career, it's all been in low-income healthcare, and in that world, there's something we focus on called the social determinants of health, and you worry about what are the other things that are impacting people's lives that cause their health to be at risk. So I'm speculating that there's some social determinants here that are causing this, these reading challenges at an earlier age. So from a council perspective, are there things we should be thinking about from a broader perspective to be helping families and young people be able to be more successful in reading earlier? I'm just trying to think what else.
Get the parents
the
involved.
council can be doing. This is an important
You
program.
guys suck.
I think it's revealing.
You guys are
a
the
need
worst.
That's significant and ongoing, and the intervention seems to be working. But what else can be doing that's outside of the school or in the school? I'm sure you've given
Maybe reading. Maybe the parents should get involved with their kid's life and teach them how to read better, get involved. It would probably be like the number one solution. Instead, your solution is like, you know what? We need more government instead.
So we are, the council and the mayor have invested in a program called City Connects in schools across Marion County. Our investment specifically is in the Far East Side. City Connects is a community support model where a coordinator.
What's on the Far East Side?
That exist in the community and connect those students with those services. Some of our schools that are in Circle City Readers also, we're also working with on City Connects, so we could see some overlap there in those specific schools. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that other schools have various other programs like this that exist. Communities in Schools is another one that several districts have gone all in on. Our hope with the City Connect schools specifically is that we can come back and present some data on what the services and needs are that have been identified specifically at the school. Many of them won't be things that you'll be surprised by, but we'll know with City Connects are students receiving those services? And if not, what are the capacity needs that we might need to come up with as a community to address that? And that should be something that we can present to the council in the future.
Oh, God.
Director McAllister, when will City Connect's information be available? Because it sounds like that's also an equally good tool that we have to focus on some of the other items, those social items.
Our hope is that we can present something by late spring, early summer to the council. And we've been running City Connects for a year. We're in year 2, so we should be able to present something to the council in the next several months, probably.
Thank you. Councilor Hart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions here. I can imagine, and I'll just say anecdotally speaking, right, I also have a little kid. He's 9 and has to go through tutoring as well. He was a COVID kid, right? So early on, it was me teach him at school, at home, and that was a terrible model. But here we are now, and we're in tutoring. And so one of the things that we've noticed, and I can definitely, see when the tutors are consistent, that there's, better results. But even trying to find tutors is my first question here. What strategies are you implementing to find them? Because I imagine that, like many roles that everyone's trying to fill, you're struggling. I'm just curious what those strategies are.
Get more robots.
So my strategies currently have been the Indy Star features, just word of mouth, networking, events. That's literally just all I have thought of right now. The parent engagement, the family coordinators, and just reaching out to any paraprofessionals that may already know friends that are looking to work within education, but just, tutoring.
Dude, she hates her life right now.
I also note on that is for this program,
she is so
you don't
miserable.
need advanced training to become a tutor. That's if you care about students and you can learn how the program works, you can become a great tutor, and we've seen that. We have a great tutor right here with us. Do you want to speak to that briefly a little bit?
Yeah, I haven't tutored. I was scared to death. The most important thing for a tutor in this program is be able to make a connection and be there consistently for the kid. Once they make the connection with the students, they'll do anything for you. And it literally this software walks you right through. It even bolds the
What does that mean, bud?
sentences if you need to read the sentences, what you read. It's phenomenal. I've actually used it on I have an 11-year-old daughter at home, and I've tested her with some of it, and so it works good.
Very, very nice. That's good to hear. But I did have a concern moving forward, right? Because this was a pilot, and on the kind of first side of that, what was the annual spend for the pilot? And then kind of taking into consideration, I know, the Indy Achieve models changed over the last year where now everybody gets enrolled in 21st Century Scholars. So, considering whatever budget we were spending to enroll students into 21st Century Scholars, is there a way to reallocate those funds, or is that even already a consideration? And then 2, what would it take to expand this program to a broader network across Indianapolis?
So I can speak briefly to that. High dosage tutoring is an expensive intervention. I think we found a way to do it relatively inexpensively, but nevertheless it is. We're, looking at a variety of options going forward. We haven't sort of figured out what the full go forward looks like on this, but I think we're trying to figure that out right now.
How much did you just spend?
If I were guessing, it's probably some combination of school funding, some combination of philanthropic funding, some combination of
give me a number.
City allocation. So that's kind of where we sit right now. And once we have, I think, a better sense of what the go forward looks like, we'll come back and talk about it.
Jeez, come on.
Keep going, Mr. Chairman.
Counselor?
Thank you, sir. Well, I would say, I'm thinking back to the inauguration we were all at with the mayor and everybody, and that was his top priority was education. So this could quite possibly be the year for that. But even in addition to that, right, I mean, just, partnering with like MDC, right, and understanding when we're looking at these commitments from an abatement perspective, like what are we getting out of those folks that we're giving incentives to. So just kind of keep the wheels turning there. But the last question I wanted to ask is, when it came to these benchmarkings and areas of improvement, I mean, it was phenomenal to see the number in green grow. But which grades? I think that was missing from that. Which were the grades that had the largest improvement metrics?
I took that out because I thought it was a little too data nerdy. But we are seeing, it's interesting, we're seeing the highest growth in the older grades because those kids have the most to grow, right? If they're well below or below basic or benchmark, they have so much catching up to do. So we're seeing the greatest growth from them, but what's interesting is the greatest jump from band levels for benchmark is in that kindergarten level because they don't have as much to grow. So catching them early is a great way to, mitigate.
Almost like the parents should get involved more, huh?
Can I also add one thing about the tutoring as well?
Yes.
The program that we chose, it lays it right out for tutors, exactly, the lesson structure, and it's very easy to follow. I think, Matt, you could attest to that as well. And that's part of why we chose that program as well.
You could do it.
It's like playing games with the students. There are 5 activities you get, and they're skill-based focused, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Perkins?
Yes, thank you. This is great. It's great to hear that we're helping our young people and they're growing. But it's also important for us to note that this is an intervention. And so the question was raised earlier, what else can we do? National research shows us that structured pre-kindergarten experience contributes greatly to our student success once they get to kindergarten and above.
Well, no shit.
And so one of the things that I will push is a consideration for universal pre-K as a way to deal with this, not as an intervention, but as a preventive measure.
This is so dumb.
And so we ought to seriously consider that, given the fact that 86% of our young people are not performing on grade level.
Why is that, huh? Why is that? Because this is a kind of a new thing. We didn't really have this problem. You can blame COVID all you want, but we all know who this affects the most. It's the kids that have no father in the house. It's the single moms. It's the broken families, and it's only continuously getting worse. And really, what Perkins is offering, what he's arguing, is that there needs to be more government in your children's life. And I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying the parents need to get more involved in less government. There are tons and tons of training material on YouTube. You can just Google it. What was it? Khan Academy has their own thing. I was able to relearn algebra with that like a year ago. And there's really no reason why the parents aren't getting involved with their children's lives unless the household is a complete mess. And basically what you're saying is, hey, we're the government and we're here to help you, which are the most terrifying words you will ever hear.
Well said, Counselor. Any other questions from my colleagues? Counselor Counselor Booth. Boots
with the fur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick question and then a comment. If we could get copies of maybe your materials or infographics on recruiting tutors, I think that is something we could share among our networks and hopefully cultivate some more that way.
There you go.
And then just a general comment, just piggybacking on what I think the message is from our current committee. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on the social determinant side, particularly for anti-violence. A big part of that, in my opinion, is education.
Shut the fuck.
And we need to start focusing more of that money and funds on education.
Yeah.
So the study that's ongoing and the impact and how can we address social determinants to impact academic achievement, that's a personal goal of mine. And we've got 4 years to work on it for this term. So I'd really encourage you to really sharpen your pencils on those subjects and come back to us. I think you'll find a very fertile committee here that's really interested in doing that. Obviously, we've got to be fiscally prudent on how
Yeah,
we
you
spend
think?
this money. But I think we need to, particularly during the budget time, education and improving education is a cornerstone to improving a lot of social ills.
Oh,
So
really?
I really encourage the OEI.
You
to
think math
really
is going to stop shootings? Is that what
focus
you're
on some of
saying?
that and get us some information we can sink our teeth in.
Hey,
Thank
you
you,
think learning to write a haiku is going to stop with stabbings?
Thanks, Counselor.
You
Any other
dope.
questions from Counselor Bain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at School 1 on the Dibbles comparison, it looks like, and I could be reading it wrong, so if I am, definitely please correct me, but it looks like the School 1 CCR saw an increase in the amount of students that were well below average and below average.
Were they just moving categories?
So when you look at that, we are looking at School 1 had 6.5% at the school level, made well above average growth.
Sheila
We're
looks
just
like she needs to
looking
take
at
a
those kiddos who were started the year well below or below, and 10.9% had above average growth. And then when we looked specifically at students in CCR, it's 15% were they had the well above average growth, and then 10% had the above average growth.
So I see the comparison there between the 6.5 and the 15,
Yeah.
and the 10.9 and then going to 10. But what does it mean when we go from 30.4 to 40 for the well below average, and we go from 21.7 to 30 for the below average?
Yeah, so that's another comparison. Yep. So you are seeing lower, well below average growth at the school level than with the CCR level. One thing I will note is the N size is quite different. I think at this school we only have about 30 students versus the school level, which is all of their K-3, who were at the well below or below.
So would you say this is an outlier?
Yeah. Because you can see in our others that that our average and above average and well above are much higher as well.
Yeah, and the other two examples that we've seen, you definitely see a decrease in the below and the well below.
Yeah.
I was just kind of caught off guard by the increase there, so I wanted to make sure it was an outlier, and that's not something that we see that is like a system-wide issue.
Yes. And those are the only schools that we actually have those comparisons for at the moment, just because of schools that actually use that Dibbles assessment that are in our program. I think there's one other, and I haven't gotten that data back yet.
So not every school uses Dibbles. We do for the CCR program, but there are schools use a variety of formative assessments, and they're able to choose amongst them. So we're trying to show you the ones that we have information for, but that's not sort of true across.
Jeez.
We don't have Dibbles for across kind of every school. And we'll have, I think, better lessons learned at the end of the first year on kind of how everything went. I want to be very clear, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, that this is mid-year data, which is very kind of raw, just to give you a general sense of what's going on. The other piece that I'll note, and Holly's mentioned before, is that some of our schools had shorter windows of time that they did tutoring because it took a little bit longer to get those tutors hired. And so as you spend more time with the tutor, as you build that relationship deeper, you should see better performance from students. And so I would imagine that's a part of it as well. Just some schools started at a different time than others.
Okay, and then is Dibbles something is that like a recommendation from the state to use that? Like, who's the one that chooses that as a benchmark?
So it is a state-approved formative assessment. There are various ones, NWEA, ClearSight, Dibbles is one of them.
Do the students at the charter schools take iRead?
Yes, they take all state assessments.
Okay, It would be interesting to get the
That's what it
iRead
is.
data as well, because I noticed that's not in here.
We will be getting that at the end of the year when they take it.
Okay, it would be good to get previous years as well.
I would venture to say that most of the students we don't have students, because they take it in the third grade.
Yep.
So we don't have
Still have all
students
that data
in
before, right?
fourth grade who have taken it in the past, if that makes sense. So students take iRead in third grade, and our program is only K-3. So those students who have taken iRead are now in the fourth grade, so we aren't seeing those students.
But you could still get the data for the schools, right?
We could.
That's what I
So I
want.
think that is what I'm getting at. It'd be good to get data from each school, that way you can see how we're measuring up.
I see, yeah. Great.
One last question, Mr. Chairman, thank you, you've been very gracious.
Go right ahead.
Do students have to apply to charter schools, or like I know private schools, they don't necessarily have to accept students that apply?
Charter schools have to accept everyone. They're open enrollment. If you're a charter school authorized by the mayor's office, you go through a process called Enroll Indy. It's a single application, and essentially what happens is, and actually I could have Enroll Indy come and present to you at some point, but all charter schools that are authorized by the mayor's office in the state and all IPS schools use the same enrollment practice. So you indicate in rank order the schools that you want to attend, and then based on the criteria that the schools have, there's a match day. The way it works similar to the way medical schools work, where you have criteria that the schools have, you have criteria that you have of the schools that you want. And
What
then,
is she
you
doing?
match to that school, and that's your school that you're able to go to. We have 3 rounds of Enroll Indy for families who might enroll later on in the year. But what it does is it eliminates as many barriers as possible to enrollment. Before this, schools could require you to come to a walkthrough of the school during the school day. They could have they could cap their enrollment in November of the previous year, which many schools did, and that essentially drove high-income students and white students to specific schools and created a barrier for low-income students and many students of color to enter those schools. So that's a little more information than you asked, Counselor, but charter schools have to follow all the same rules that a district school does related to enrollment. They can't deny anybody.
Do they ever have capacity issues?
They do, which is they have with us a limit that we have agreed to with them of the number of students per grade that they can serve, but they're required to fill to that whatever that capacity number is. So if you have 100 students in kindergarten, you have 100 spots available in kindergarten. If you want that spot and it is available and we're not in an Enroll Indy enrollment period, you're able to claim that spot, and it doesn't matter what district you're in, too. You could live in Anderson and drive in every day to a charter school and attend it.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from colleagues on the council?
Could I make, sorry,
Councilor Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I wanted to really point out was on these comparisons that Councilor Bain was mentioning, I just think I know I would find value in seeing the beginning of the year for the school and the end of the year for the school. Because to me, it's good to see the comparison of the CCR program to the entire school, but it's almost apple to oranges, right? Sure, they're children.
Yeah, let's see
learning in
the
schools,
flow of
but,
it.
If we're looking both at the beginning, that's just the beginning, right? I mean, it's almost like a snapshot is what I'm reading, because it says students that began the year.
so this is, this is the growth that they made.
This
So
was the
these are looking at only students who were at well below or below benchmark. So I removed all of those students who were average, above average, on benchmark. So we are kind of comparing like the students who need the most supports, both in the school and in CCR. And it is the growth that they made from beginning to middle.
I see now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah. Could I make one clarifying
Please.
question? Counselor Perkins, you mentioned the 86% well below or below. Just want to clarify, that is just of our students who are in the program, not Marion County. So.
Council Perkins?
And I do assume that with almost 360 students, that is a pretty good snapshot and representative of the students in Marion County. So I do understand that. Thank you. Question for Patrick. How do you balance the responsibility of the office to manage the 30 schools that you have in the charter, or the number of schools you have in the charter, versus doing program management? Because it seems to me that
It's because I'm awesome,
connecting
bro.
both
That's
sides of the
why.
presentation tonight, you're a charter granting agency, but you're also doing programs. So how do you manage that, and what's the plan for that going forward?
I have a great team. That's the short answer. So for programs that that the council has appropriated funds for, we have excellent program directors that either report into our office, as Brooke does, or are operated by an external entity like Employ Indy. So Indy Achieves, which is funded by the City County Council, is operated by Employ Indy. So I have a team that can manage the relationships with programs to make sure that things are working to troubleshoot. And my team also can oversee all of the schools that we have in our portfolio as well.
Thank
Any
you,
other questions from the
taxpayers.
committee? This will not, we will not entertain any questions from our, from outside the committee. With that, any final items to present, Director McAllister?
I just want to thank this committee. I know some of you are repeat members, and that's great to see you again. Some of you are new and have deep experiences in different ways, some in education, some outside. Really looking forward to working with all of you going forward. Mr. Chairman, I think you did a great job of setting the tone at the beginning, so I really want to thank you and say that I appreciate you and your leadership on this. And I look forward to working with you going forward.
Absolutely, and I echo that as well. Look forward to working with you and the mayor's team. You guys are doing well. Thank you for this presentation from your entire team. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Boy, this video actually goes on a little bit longer. You guys messing around? Oh. Congratulations, congratulations. They're all shaking each other's hands. Listen, you know, Larry Vaughn should have stayed there. But there wasn't enough camera time, so what are you going to do? Well, that was the Education Committee, huh? That was the probably the first time that I've watched it. Because most of the time I'll just listen to it while I'm at work. So this was very interesting. I'm glad that they did have it. Kudos to Keith Graves on actually holding it. It's good information. It's good for me. Good questions. I was actually pleasantly surprised that I liked it, because most of these committee meetings I despise. So I guess who knows when the next one will be, because the last one that there was back in September. But the Public Safety Committee was tonight, so I will do that. That will do that one tomorrow. I do have the Wayne Township Advisory Board tomorrow that I will be speaking at for public testimony about the merger with IFD and Wayne Township Fire Department. And I will give you an update on that probably Friday. That's the goal. So, until next time.